Laura Maffucci, welcome to the conversation today.
Hey, John, thank you. So great to be here.
It is a real pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from the Austin area. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about the recent GP World of Work report for 2025 that's been released, and really the outlook for the coming 2026 uh, year. And we're just at such an interesting time. Things are so in flux. The complexity is off the rails, and yeah, there's just change is everywhere. And so we're going to try to unpack the main findings of this report and have a good discussion around that. As we get started, I wanted to share Laura's bio with everybody. Laura Maffucci is GP's head of HR, overseeing the global workforce, talent, and employee experience with a people first mindset. She values diversity of thought as essential for healthy workplaces. In her 20 plus year career in HR, she has spoken on global and national platforms about compensation, employee well being, and mental health. She's a staunch advocate for the employee experience and creating a culture of inclusivity. Maffucci is passionate about the future of work, normalizing the value of work for everyone, and enabling employees globally to be their best selves and add value wherever they go and whatever they do. I love everything about that. Very much share in your philosophy and mindset and approach around work and the future of work and employee experience. I'm excited to have this conversation. Before we dive on in, anything that you would like to highlight by way of your background or personal context?
No, I think that bio covers it. Our comms team does a good job of writing those bios for us. So I think that really covered everything. Lately I've been focused on all the speaking engagements and everything I've been doing have all been about AI. And so I feel like I've gained a lot of insights just from talking to people out there at conferences and everything around how people are responding to dealing with that, and looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome, awesome. Well, why don't you just start by laying the groundwork and framing up this report, and why this report, why now, and then we can start to dig into some of the findings and what they mean.
Sure. So, GP, we're the leader in global employment. We have a suite of products: our EOR product, our global HR agent, GPGIA, and our contractor product. And all of our products have AI throughout, even if it's not just our agent. Our EOR product, our contractor products, all weave in AI. Which is a hot topic in HR. And every year, GP does a World at Work report to kind of get an understanding out there of what executives are thinking about all of the things that are affecting the world of work. Things are changing so frequently. It's almost impossible to keep up.
Hmm.
It's not completely impossible to keep up. So we like to really reach out once a year and get those perspectives to help inform us and inform our products and how we can better serve our customers.
Yeah, yeah. I think always trying to engage in these dialogues and doing real-time research to better understand the current state of things and the current trends is super helpful and completely necessary, right? And there's lots of consultancies and lots of different organizations putting out various world of work reports and the impact of AI on work reports. And there's a lot of really great resources out there. And I really like this one because of the real detail to the methodology, the quantitative approach, and how we can leverage these findings. In some cases, more detail here than I think we often see in some of the other
Yeah.
reports that are out there. So I really appreciate that. Okay, let's dive into a few pieces here and try to unpack them. So, for example, one finding, 64% of executives worry their organizations aren't built to withstand today's geopolitical, economic, and tech shocks. And I don't blame them because we're
Nope.
we're we're in quite the world, aren't we? Geopolitical, socioeconomic, disruptive innovation, like all of these elements are creating this little cyclone of like messiness and complexity and change all around us. So the fact I'm actually kind of surprised it's not higher. That
I
it's
think the others, I think that the others think they are ready and they're not.
so they're a bit
I think,
delusional.
yeah, I think they're just, it's wishful thinking in large
Uh-huh.
part. You just can't be, things are chaos. The technology is moving so fast, and things are changing so rapidly geopolitically that it's just you can't be ready. I think that should be 100% worried that they're not ready.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So I would, again, I would think that that percentage would be higher. And you're suggesting the reason it's not is really people are maybe being a little bit too optimistic, not grounded in reality, in the way maybe they should be. And I'm all for optimism. I'm all for,
Optimism's great.
yeah, you don't want to be so bogged down and so
Right.
like terrified of the current situation that you're not doing anything strategically to move forward. And
Right.
that would be a disaster, right? And so I'm all for proactivity, strategic foresight, and I'm all for optimism, but you also have to be grounded with reality is it is a messy place right
Hmm.
now. And so whether that percentage is at 64 or 80 or 100, the reality is it's tough, and I would think most are particularly well suited to deal with it. Now, some are gonna just because of their size, because of their influence, because of their impact, because of their capitalization. Like some are just able to absorb more
Exactly.
than others, but I don't think they're necessarily better suited to actually adapt more than others. It's just a matter of survival.
Well, and I think some of them too, you see all these things about the layoffs that are happening or companies that have shifted,
Hmm.
complete segments of their employee population shifted it over to AI. Um, that's probably moving a little too quickly. And I think you're going to see a pendulum swing
Yeah.
and they're going to see, oh, wait, this isn't working. There's too many errors. I also think some of what is being attributed to AI isn't necessarily just AI taking people's jobs because the work is being taken over by AI. It's companies scaling back their workforces in order to afford these
Yes.
systems and the chips and the components of the systems. So these recent layoffs that everyone's attributing to AI, that's not because they're replacing the work with AI. It's because they need to buy more chips and they need to
Yeah.
free up the room on their web services because they're turning away business for AWS. So there's so much complexity to all of it, and it's so easy to get bogged down in all of it. And I think you see very few people are taking, like a monitor approach. You see people saying, I'm going to wipe out, this whole department by replacing it with AI, or you see people putting their heads in the sands and saying, no, 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 we're not going to use AI. And I don't think either approach is the way to be right now. You need to be somewhere in the middle. But it's certainly an interesting time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Amazon example, and I want to bring up Facebook as well. And there's a whole bunch of examples we could raise, but the Amazon example is a really good one because on the surface, everyone just assumes that yeah, they're just automating, moving things towards AI, total AI displacement of workers. And no, that's actually not what's happening at all. If you go even a little bit beneath the surface, like you said, it's all about chips, and it's all
Mhm.
about having the capital freed up to buy more chips. It's a race towards computing capacity and chips,
Mhm.
right? Amongst
Exactly.
all of these big, and they just simply have to find areas to cut costs, and labor is one of the biggest areas
Mhm.
to cut costs, right? And so that's what they're doing now. Will it pay off ultimately? I guess we'll wait and see. But
Mhm.
there's absolutely going to be impacts and ripple effects of these mass layoffs on all sorts of things that Amazon's doing. Now, like pivoting over to Facebook for a minute, like I just find it so interesting how, they've been making the news for all of these outrageous offers for bringing in AI engineers, right? And I
Same.
mean, these are like professional athlete
Exactly.
level offers.
Exactly.
In some cases, blowing a professional athlete offer, ranges out of the water.
Hmm.
Like they're insane. Like so on the one hand, Facebook has been, trying to capture and chomp up as many of those high profile AI engineers and people as possible. And then they just announce massive layoffs in their AI division, right? And so you're like, okay, what's going on here? Like, how do these things add up? And many of those people that they're laying off are people that they had just recently poached from OpenAI or from
Yeah.
any of these other big companies. And so, like, did they go from being like stellar rock stars to like being completely replaceable, overnight? Maybe. But there's a whole lot. It just speaks to
I'm seeing a
this
lot
the
of the
shock.
bubble, so to
Hmm.
speak, and that at the end of the day, no one really knows how to monetize this.
Hmm.
I saw an interesting, I was watching a podcast recently. I forget which one it was, but they were talking about, you know, really successful products solve a problem. And AI is not really solving an existing problem. Like it is driving, certainly there's some automation type of efficiency
Yeah.
problems that it's solving to a certain degree. But overarching, like what problem does Sora actually solve?
It's cool to play with.
It's cool to play with, but and it's dangerous because it looks so real. And a lot of people don't have the discernment or the critical thinking to understand that what they're seeing isn't real. But there really we didn't have a problem whereby we couldn't do that cool thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with all of it. And it's driving so much anxiety too. Like, just when I think about employees and being nervous about the impact it's going to have on their roles. But when you think about everything going on in the world and how uncertain everything is, and everybody's just in a constant state of fight or flight. And then now you add on top of that, that every single thing you see, you have to question whether or not it's real.
Right.
And that doesn't lead to for a peaceful existence, really. So it's just got tentacles, and it's touching everything.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So another piece from the report, 84% say they can't find the skilled talent they need in local markets, so it's driving a shift to global hiring. Now, we've been seeing a shift in recent years anyways, and in part, the pandemic unlocked that box because so many companies were really just stuck in the in-person model, and all of a sudden you go into like remote or hybrid approaches and you're like, oh, I guess we can really just hire people from anywhere, and then we use collaborative technologies to work with people from across time zones, even
Mm-hmm.
across the world. And you saw this huge increase, like especially during the pandemic and post-pandemic of people leaning into distributed workforce, right?
Yeah.
But in what we've also seen over the last 18 months or so is a lot of CEOs going to return to office mandates, and saying, hey, pandemic's over, we
Oh,
want
yes.
everyone back. This is how we're going to be the most collaborative and innovative, is for people to be together physically in the office. And so there's like this tension between global workforce access and availability and cost of labor, frankly, cost of labor savings, that could be present in different markets, to return to office mandates and trying to, deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional thoughts that you have as you look at that percentage? 84% saying they want global hiring, yet we juxtaposed to return to office mandates and kind of this pendulum swing in terms of remote work.
I would argue that one of the reasons they're not finding the talent they need is it would be if you did do a return to office mandate, because the good talent doesn't want that. Most people,
Even
at
if
the
they're local, right?
very few people want to be in the office 5 days a week. There's some people who definitely prefer hybrid. And there's certain locations, like I know in India, for instance, it's very important for them to be in person. They prefer to be in person. They don't prefer to be remote in a lot of instances. But if you're forcing people to be back in the office and they're really strong talent, they're going to be able to go somewhere that isn't going to force them to be in the office. So, I think so much is driven by fear of change and fear of not having control over what employees are doing, fear of the commercial real estate market, collapsing as a result of it. So I think that it's really short-sighted to force people into an office. People want the freedom to work where and when works for them, and you get more out of people that way when you do, and your company does better. So I think that's something that people are definitely finding. And I think, the skilled talent thing we've been seeing for years.
Hmm. Hmm.
And, AI is such a good example, but AI hasn't been around very long. It reminds me of social media. When social media first started, and you'd have, leaders saying, we need to find somebody with 20 years of experience in social media. And it's like, well, social media hasn't been around for 20. AI hasn't been around for 20 years. You're not going to have somebody who's going to have the skills that you need. So you also have to be really good at upskilling
Yeah.
and providing opportunities for your really smart, learning, agile employees to try new things and develop those skills.
Yeah. So the local talent gap, that we're seeing in many organizations. Now, certainly there are skills gaps, and we know in STEM fields, for example,
Yeah.
we're not producing as many people as we need, and there's a big conversation to be had around all of that. But there are other factors that are going on here, and some of it's just a byproduct and what happens based on certain strategic decisions that organizational leaders, executive C-suite are
Exactly.
making within their organizations. And so
Hmm.
so it artificially restricts the talent.
Yeah.
And in some cases, sure, is there going to be a lack of like credentialed talent in a new emerging area? Of course, because that's the nature of it.
Mhm.
And so you have to look for ways, for other transferable skill indicators around what, someone's capable of in this new emerging area. You need to look at upskilling and reskilling folks. In really strategic ways, not just generalized, like skills are all the rage and everyone's talking
Right.
about skills, right? And so that's great. And we can have high level kind of talking points around that. And we can say all the kind of the right things around the importance of skills. But the reality is most companies still, when they're hiring, they kind of have these arbitrary, college degree, 5 years of experience, blah, 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 all these things that don't necessarily relate to what someone actually needs to be able to perform the job, especially in new emerging and agile areas, right?
Hmm.
And so that's an important factor in all of this, and understanding the return to office mandates and this tension between remote, hybrid, and in-person work, and the control that managers are used to having over the work. These are all shifting and emerging kind of areas. So as I think of employee experience, as I think about work design, I think it's more about intentionality around your strategy and how it
Yeah.
impacts those elements. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong. I can't necessarily say, just off the top of my head, you like if someone does a return to office mandate, I can't automatically say that's a bad idea. It may be exactly what's needed for that
For a
organization
specific type
in
of,
their
yeah.
context. But I just don't think most of the time when those kind of mandates are coming out that they're grounded that way, you know?
No, and I think intentionality is such a good thing, and especially tied to mandates, because how much intentionality is in there. And when you look at AI and a company mandating people use AI, most companies are just saying that, and there's no intentionality in how they're doing it. And oftentimes the people who are mandating it, they couldn't even convert a PDF if they had to. Never mind. So they have no idea, what they're saying when they say, "Oh, we all need to use AI." They don't even know what that means either. So the intentionality lacking, and that can happen when things are also moving as quickly as they are.
Yeah.
People are just racing to keep up.
Yeah. And system-wide AI integration and adoption is not really happening in most places. So it's super fragmented. It's often very frontline worker kind of like use case driven, and they're all using different
And you have
tools
to
and
be careful
platforms.
because the security, I really like what we did. We have an AI council that was in action before any mandate came down, that was focused mostly on the policy. And we review it once a month because the policy, there's so much you have to do that to keep up.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the AI Council kind of jumped into action when we got our mandate, and we started, educating employees on, how to prompt. We got an enterprise-wide tool to make sure that all of our data was secure. Employees are encouraged to go out and find AI tools, but they know the process to go through to get them approved, because we don't want them just out there using any AI tool for security reasons. So
Right.
you really need to put an intentional effort behind it when you've got a bunch of employees out there you'd be surprised at before we had the enterprise tool, you'd be surprised at how many very senior level people were pasting emails with confidential company information into chat GPT to do work, thinking, well, it just goes away afterwards. Like, the internet is forever. No, it doesn't.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you have to be careful.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. And another, finding from the study, 31% of employees fear AI could replace them. So there's that displacement fear. And I think that's fairly ubiquitous. Like most people are kind of in this fight or flight mode of just wondering, am I going to have my job because AI could replace at least some of the tasks I do, if not a lot,
Mhm.
or all of what I do. And so there's that fear. I don't think that fear personally, I just don't think that's super well grounded. Like, I don't think people are generally going to be just completely wholesale replaced. But I totally understand the fear. Um, what I find interesting is the counterpoint to that. 26% in your study show or say that they're worried that their work will be devalued if they use AI. So on the one
Yeah.
hand, we're saying, don't worry about being displaced by AI necessarily, but you need to learn how to use AI and leverage AI, and then you're valuable and you're not going to be displaced, right? On the
Mhm.
other hand, a quarter of the people are saying, I'm in a place that if I use it, I'm going to be seen as lazy or taking shortcuts or cheating,
Exactly.
and my work's going to be devalued. And we know there's a lot of research emerging that this disproportionately negatively impacts women. And so
Mhm.
it would be interesting to see, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but like of that 26%, like is it evenly distributed across gender or is it more
I don't think
women?
I don't think we collect that data on gender when we do the report. But it is true, and even in our organization, where we even have we have what we call the AI Awesomeness Awards, and we have awards monthly for people who are using AI. But you still feel you have people who are afraid to let their manager know that they used AI to create something when in fact you should be able to, in some organizations they probably should be afraid of that because some organizations might not understand and they might think, oh well, if you could use AI to do that, then we don't need you.
Right.
But at the end of the day, somebody's got to prompt the AI, somebody's got to
Right.
proofread what the AI said. The I a couple months ago learned that most of the large language models out there, their primary sources are Reddit and Wikipedia and Quora. And that's not the most reliable. I mean, if you really need some solid information, your first place isn't going to be Reddit. But then I saw the other day that Reddit is the number one most cited source for large language models. And it is cited so much that it's cited twice as much as the second most cited. I don't know what the
Wow.
second most cited is, but and so basically it's just a fancy way of using Reddit at this point. So,
Mhm.
you have to be careful with that stuff. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, so there's definitely HR needs to be able to build trust around AI integration, AI augmentation, not replace all important things, and it requires transparency and open dialogue and clear communication repeatedly, over communication of expectations. And I think that is a place where most organizations could probably improve dramatically. So I note the time. I'm going to have to let you go here in a few minutes, but before we wrap up, like do you see any like new emerging HR tech options out there to help with all of this? And what do we see from these trends from 2025, in terms of the 2026 outlook?
So, I think I'm just going to toot our own horn here. GPGIA, it's the first driven built AI for global compliant HR. So as companies are hiring elsewhere, and I think with the new H-1B regulations and
Hmm. Hmm.
people, you might not be able to have them here, but you want that talent from that country, you might have to hire them over there. Compliance and hiring globally is incredibly complex, even if you're just in more than one US state, because the different
Yeah.
regulations in each state are so challenging. So you need to have a trusted source for your information without having to spend thousands and thousands on legal fees or expanding into a huge HR department. So a tool like GPGIA that's built on over 100,000 of our own internal verified sources based on over a decade working with global employment. It's all been vetted by internal HR and internal legal. Something that is really solid like that, those are the types of tools that there aren't many out there. And that's the type of thing that companies are going to need to be looking for if they're going to keep up.
Yeah, and it's really it can be overwhelming, because there's new tools. I mean, weekly there's a whole like new slate of new AI tools. Some of them are truly new, others are kind of skins around existing things. But there's just so much, and so people get overwhelmed very quickly, change fatigue, and it's simply not unless that's your full-time job to just play with all the
Right.
tools. Like it's simply impossible, right, for someone to stay on top of everything. So you really need to just be very strategic around how you're looking into the emerging HR tech space.
Mhm.
Lean into thought leading companies and thought leaders in the space who are doing a lot of that work for you and reviewing those tools and resources for you.
Mhm.
You don't have to do it all yourself or replicate or reinvent the wheel yourself, and that could be super beneficial.
Exactly.
Ultimately keeping up with the pace of change and the speed of business is going to be very, very vital moving forward. And there's no like quick easy answer to it. That's
Yep.
the unfortunate thing, I guess. Not necessarily unfortunate, but just like the reality of where we're at. And so lean into the data. Let's lean into what we do know and do the best we can to project out
Exactly.
from that into what the future may look like. None of us has a crystal ball. And if
Nope.
anyone claims to have a crystal ball, you should be super skeptical. Um,
Absolutely.
but let's absolutely do the best we can in trying to have practice that strategic foresight and look around the corner a little bit and then try to be as prepared as we can and then just be agile. One of the best ways to be prepared is to just build in continuous learning, reskilling, upskilling, and agility into your organization. If you can build
Yep.
those capacities, you're probably going to be much better off in a lot of
Agility.
places.
Yep. Learning agility is the most important. Critical thinking and curiosity.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
Well said. Well, Laura, this has just been a great conversation. Again, I note the time. I need to let you go. But before we wrap up, I just want to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your team, and give us the final word for today.
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn, and GP has a huge presence on LinkedIn. It's a great place to find information. And of course, our website, gp.com, anytime. And I think you'll be able to find a lot of information about us in all those places. So
Thank you. Laura, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Encourage the
thank you.
audience to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Laura can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.